Nqobile Madlala is in Johannesburg getting reaction from ordinary citizens on the president's address, and she joins us now. Good morning, Nqobile. What is the sentiment of citizens this morning following that address?
Actually, I'm going to get right straight into it, and I'm going to bring in Trevor Ngwane. Now, we know that he has been in the forefront talking about these issues, especially when it comes to electricity and accessibility for people in the townships. I mean, I know that the president said there that he's spoken to a number of people. First of all, have you also been consulted?
Thank you, Nqobile. Well, we are the excluded because the president never consulted us. Certainly, the president did not consult the Soweto Electricity Crisis Committee, although I see now he has created our mother body, the National Energy Crisis Committee. He didn't consult the second biggest labor federation, SAFTU. He didn't consult one of the biggest unions on the platinum mines, AMCU, or in gold. You know, so there are so many people who are excluded from giving input into the president's plan. But I know he did consult big business.
And I mean, I understand that you're saying that he's consulted other people and perhaps you've been excluded. Does that then means that the sort of issues that you wanted to raise are not being acknowledged in his speech?
Well, the fact that he's now talking of a crisis is good because he's at last acknowledging that there is an electricity crisis in South Africa. But remember, our organization, the Soweto Electricity Crisis Committee, was formed in 2000, so he's waking up 22 years later. But certainly I'm concerned that the issues besetting poor working class communities such as in Soweto, in Gugulethu, in Danzane, Winterfeld, etc. Their issues are not being addressed. There is poverty, there is unemployment. People simply cannot afford the high prices, they have to pay for electricity. So I don't think that the one time he spoke about poor communities was to talk about illegal connections. The other time he talked about households can put solar panels on top of their rooftops, But I think most people won't be able to afford, buying solar panels.
And I mean, that's interesting because a lot of people have been faced with affordability issues. In Soweto, where we're standing, do you think they'll be able to react to these interventions and be able to implement them for themselves, especially when it comes to the solar power?
Well, I don't think so. Basically, what has happened, what the president should have said was, I, as the government, am going to install solar panels on every rooftop in South Africa, starting with the poorest of the poor, and then moving to the employed working class, and then subsidizing the middle class. Instead, he said, Eskom is going to start buying electricity from so-called independent power producers. So these are capitalist businesses who are there for money. So basically, price will be a barrier, for poor people, for working class people to access electricity.
Maybe expand on that. What do you mean by that?
Well, what happens is that the basic problem of Eskom, besides corruption, it's privatization, it's commercialization and financialization. Commercialization means that, you only get electricity if you pay for it. It's not a right. We all know that you cannot live in the modern society without electricity. So we think electricity is a right. But if you commercialize it, that's what you imply. It's commodification. Privatization means it's your own private problem. So if you don't have money to buy electricity, you can go and jump. Now, if you start purchasing power from capitalist businesses, the so-called IPPs, it means that if you don't have money, you won't have electricity. In other words, the government, the state will step aside, and then it's up to you and those businesses, private businesses, to make a deal. I think many people will suffer, especially the poor.
And let's talk about some of the people here in Soweto who haven't had electricity for so long. Do you think that perhaps this could be a solution for them now?
I don't think so, because as I've said, we have identified a crisis here for how many years? 20 years? 30 years? In fact, our crisis goes back to apartheid days. During apartheid, Soweto was dark. Alexandra was a dark city. So we thought that the new government is going to bring light. But instead, they say, yes, you can have light, but you must be able to pay. On top of that, there is something we call energy racism. So that's the idea that, black, poor, working class people don't deserve energy. That's the idea that black, working class people don't appreciate the need to pay for electricity. There's the idea that black, working class people, they connect themselves illegally. They vandalize, the infrastructure. But all that is not true. It's what I call geographic racial profiling. Because, of course, if you live in Soweto, whether you pay or not, when there's load reduction, when there's load shedding, when there's no service, when your transformer bursts and Eskom doesn't send anyone to fix it, you suffer. So basically, this is energy racism. It's profiling black working class areas, townships, shack settlements, and rural villages, and thinking that they don't really deserve to have full access to electricity.
So what is your solution? What would you say to the president if he had said then, give me solutions? What is your solution?
The future of energy in South Africa and everywhere in the world is renewables. We cannot keep on burning coal, burning oil, burning gas. The earth is being destroyed. We saw in Natal, in KZN, Durban, the floods. We saw in Mozambique, that cyclone Idai. Can you see? Yeah, so the future is renewables. But renewables must not be provided by the private sector. We must remove profit from the provision of a basic service like electricity. Eskom must be worker controlled. Eskom must be socially owned. The president must have a project to install rooftop solar panels in every township, every village, every shack settlement in South Africa. That would be a big step forward.
All right. Thank you very much. Trevor Ngwane there speaking to us in Fundo, but I think it's very clear from what he's saying that he feels that the community here and many others feel being excluded from the president's speech, saying that there are other solutions that needs to assist, especially when it comes to the financial aspect of things, talking about that solar power, as he says that it's very expensive. For some families, it might not be possible.
All right, Nqobile, thank you very much for that update. That's reporter Nqobile Madlala out in Soweto. To this